Hello, I'm Colin Harkness, wine writer living in Spain. And this is another in my series of YouTube videos talking about the wines of my adoptive country. You can see in front of you that I actually have a bottle of white wine here. And why not? Because during the last 15 years, although Spain has been well known for many years for its red wines, during the last 15 years, Spain has been making some top-class quality white wines. Now I'm going to take you to one of the oldest winemaking areas of Spain. It is actually called the Albufera, and it's in the Sierra Nevada mountains above Granada. Here, of course, it has the advantage of Mediterranean climate with warm sea winds coming off the Mediterranean, but also they mix round about above the Sierra Nevada with a continental climate as well, so it's quite unique. We have days of absolutely wonderful sunshine, which of course enable the grapes to ripen, but they don't become flabby. Oh no, the reason for that is because at night time the temperatures are really low at such high altitude, and this means that we can produce white wines with acidity, the necessary acidity to make them as fresh as we really like them. This particular wine, which you can see is Veleta, it's a series of wines called Veleta, and it comes from a bodega called Bodegas Dominio Buenavista. And the cornerstone of this particular bodega is the history and the tradition of winemaking in this ancient area. But of course, it also looks towards modern methods, modern technology, and so there's a great balance at this bodega, and there's certainly a great balance in the wine as well. The philosophy of the bodega can in some ways be summed up by the choice of grapes that are actually used to make the various different wines in this profile of wines. They're using indigenous old varieties from Spain and from this particular locality as well, but they're also introducing some of the international grape varieties. Now I can tell you I'm very comfortable with saying one of those international grape varieties, which is indeed in a small proportion, I think it's about 5 or 10%, because that's Chardonnay. Of course, that's easy to pronounce. However, the indigenous grape variety is going to perhaps trip me up on this video, but I hope you'll actually come along with me really on it. It's called the Viji. I had to look at my notes and you might have noticed. Viji, which mercifully on the label, the wine is called Viji as opposed to the rest of it as well. But this grape variety is quite remarkable. It's remarkable because it's indigenous, but it has some absolutely wonderful qualities in terms of its aroma, its fragrance certainly, but also in terms of its flavour. Put those two together, hey, you have a cracking wine. Put them on top of the Sierra Nevada and you've got a fresh wine with acidity, yes, but certainly it isn't a burning acidity like some of those white wines of yesteryear used to be. I can actually detect on the aroma of this wine some orange blossom. It's a really well perfumed wine. It's got some citrus notes as well, and also when you actually put it on your mouth, you can get the benefit of what we in the wine trade like to call white stone fruits. I'm really talking about peaches, not the bright red ones, not really even the orange ones that you get, but that one which has got actually a white flesh to it as well. You can get some of that on the nose, but you can certainly get it on the flavour. It's a perfectly well perfumed wine, and on the palate, when you put the wine onto your mouth, you can actually detect lots more. Let's have a little try. Now I'm wearing a white shirt here, and I hope you've noticed the tie. That was the wife's idea, lovely Claire. But anyway, if you actually hold this, you can see against a white background, because we always like to do that when we're looking at a colour, you can see that it's perfectly fresh. It's bright indeed as well, and the clarity is, well, perfection. You can just about perhaps gather that there is a little bit of pale gold in the colour. And as I'm doing this now, wow, this fragrance, this perfume is wafting over to me. It's just like the breeze coming off the Sierra Nevada. Let's actually put the nose in and get a bit more out of it as well. Yeah, that peach and orange blossom is really coming strong now. I'm going to put it in the mouth as well. white flowers in general. There's a touch of minerality about it as well. The rocks, perhaps the slate, but certainly the granite up there in the Sierra Nevada, that comes through on the wine and adds something that's actually very endearing. It means the wine is fresh, has a lovely flavour and aroma, as I've said, but it's also going to be a wine which is going to really complement food. It's got that body to it as well. You might find some mountain herbs in there as well. Understated, some hinojo, fennel. Hinojo is the Spanish word, and sometimes for some odd reason I can remember the Spanish word before the English word, I don't know why. But some other mountain herbs, I would say there's just a little nod at thyme in there as well, which makes it quite an interesting wine, and one I think that would probably go with some Southeast Asian cuisine as well, one of my favourites. And on the finish, this is what I really like. On the finish, there's a slight bitter grapefruit note as well. But it doesn't put you off, because backing that up, there's that lovely fruit, that lovely peach fruit as well. So you get those two, and you get a long finish, a long fresh finish, because of course the grapefruit, a very fresh fruit. But also that's going to mean that this wine is really going to go well with various different foods. I'd say that if you're vegetarian, this wine is going to go really well, even if you're not vegetarian, with any sort of salads, etc. Clearly it's going to go very nicely with fish. I'd put it in there with shellfish as well. But the aroma on it, that sort of slightly sweet, I suppose you could say, aroma, but don't get me wrong, it's not a sweet wine by any means. But that is going to mean that it's going to go lovely as a backdrop to some perhaps Asian cuisine. Think of some Nepalese, some Indian cuisine, and I think this wine is going to go perfectly with that. The bodega, as I've said, is called Bodegas Dominio Buenavista, and the wine, I'm going to risk it again here, is called Viji. And fortunately, they've abbreviated that and they call it Viji. This is the 2014 vintage. It is drinking, as you would expect, perfectly now. It's certainly got another year in it, and I think you will be delighted when you try this wine. They have a whole range of wines, including sparkling wines, and I'm quite sure I'll be back with another video about this particular bodega. Look out for Veleta. It's quite an interesting name. It's a combination as well of wines made in some ways for the USA market, because it's a partnership between USA, it's a family-owned one, partnership between the USA and also America as well. So we've got two different influences here in a way, and hopefully some good sales as well, because this is one of those wines that isn't yet well known. But maybe with this video, and maybe with some reviews that they're getting at the moment, it's going to become more so, and I hope so. I know that they recently exhibited in London in the Wines of Spain exhibition, where they received lots of praise, lots of plaudits, and I'm not surprised. Look out for this wine. It's called Viji, and it's from Bodegas Dominio Buenavista. Many thanks. See you again soon.